There's some rumours out there. There's some rumours about a new Canon R5 and R6. So in the last 48 hours, there's been a lot of rumours flying around about the new Canon R5 full frame mirrorless camera with some pretty interesting specs. I'm going to take a few of them with a pinch of salt, but they are very interesting, and since I went over to Sony, I've not looked back, but it has now got me peeking over my shoulder to see what it's all about. So, calling it the Canon R5, I'm pretty sure it's going to be sat in the range like the 5D, but obviously mirrorless R5. Now, there's some interesting bits of information coming out from Canon rumours about the spec of this new camera. The highlights are a 45 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor, IBIS, 5 stops of IBIS, 7 to 8 stops of correction when using in-lens stabilization, which, that's great, perfect. 12 frames per second mechanical and 20 frames per second electronic shutter. Dual card slots, exactly what we were hoping for and what you haven't got on the other Canon mirrorless range yet. Scroll wheel's been added to the back, no touch bar. Live view movie toggle like previous EOS DSLRs, a larger capacity battery, but looks very much like the LPE6 supposedly. And that's all fine, and there's nothing there that I'm like, well, that doesn't seem right. It's a lot of megapixels and the IBIS looks great. Then it comes down to video spec, and the video spec is what everyone's talking about. These new frame rates and resolution that, to be honest, blow anything else out the water. First off is saying we have 8K 30 frames per second. Now, 8K is not going to mean anything to me for the foreseeable future. I have absolutely nothing that will play 8K. I don't have an 8K monitor, TV, any sort of gear like that. Not to say I won't, I know I will. I'm a tech head, I love all that stuff. I am sure before 2025, I'll have everything 8K. No one else I know will, but I'll be able to see it. So yeah, 8K is interesting. It's interesting that it's going to be on there. That again opens up lots more options if you shoot 8K and cropping in, so it'll certainly be interesting to see if that comes to fruition. Canon rumours then go on to state that it's a 4K 120 frames per second. That will be awesome if it is. It then says 4K 60, which I would expect, and that is what I thought you would get. Now with resolution and megapixels and everything else, you probably will find that they are going to be cropped. The 8K has to be cropped, even if it had a big fat fan and they expanded the size of the camera and there was to be a fan built in to keep it cool. I still think it would be cropped, but it can't be cropped too much because of the amount of megapixels you need. So if this is true, it's going to be very interesting to see if that is 8K and whether it's cropped at all or full frame. I'm guessing a 1.3 crop, but that's just a guess. Who knows? Who knows? The 4K 120, now that's got to be cropped. I'd be amazed if they were to get a decent data rate and 4K 120 out of any sensor. Unless, of course, they've been doing some real magic over the last couple of years. They've been quiet, and Canon have been very quiet with what they're going to put video spec onto their DSLRs and their mirrorless cameras because of their cinema range, and we know that. But if you're pushing the boundaries too much, they really are not going to sell many cinema cameras. People argue you would still buy the cinema range because they're dedicated for professional work, and it'd be great for the prosumer to have something like this in a mirrorless body. But I don't think you wouldn't spend 15 grand on the latest C500 or whatever if you could have something like this and just rig it up for under 5 grand. So it's certainly something that Canon wouldn't want to do, but they are losing a lot of sales. They have lost a lot of sales over to Sony and their full frame cameras. Panasonic have come out with the S1H, which I haven't got my hands on, but I am really keen to get hold of that. That looks great. The video quality I've seen out of that, it looks equal to the Blackmagic, and obviously that's full frame. So again, there's a lot that Canon got to do to catch up, but if that's what they've been doing for the last couple of years, gone quiet and gone back to make sure that they get these awesome specs into this camera, then that's going to be very interesting indeed. They're also saying that it's going to be announced in the next couple of weeks, on or around the 13th of Feb. That'll be great. They're saying July this year they'll be shipped, so who knows? Hopefully we'll have something to report back on in a few weeks rather than just these rumours, but Canon rumours are standing by it. They're like, this is the spec. So the only real outstanding question, if that is the spec, is what's going to be the crop, if any, on these resolutions. So I'm very keen to see what this can do video-wise. It's got me quite excited, I must admit. I also spotted something on Digital Camera World earlier today about the new Canon R6. I didn't even know this was in the works, but it would sit just below the Canon R5, a bit like A6D. This is a 20 megapixel mirrorless camera. It looks to be very similar shape and size, just with slightly reduced specs. And this one's actually got me more interested, because if the Canon R5 is going to be £4,000, and this comes in at under 2 or close to 1,500, you've really got my interest. And this might be the one that is gunning for the A7 III, or even an A7S III that's coming out soon. A7S III, I don't know. Is that happening? I don't know. I hope it is. It's been a long time. I'm hoping for a video-centric Sony, because I have bought into the Sony system. But if the R6 is like the 6D again, this is going to be very interesting to see if it does perform on a par. Now, as I say, it has 20 megapixels, and very much like the 6D had the same, and I used the 6D for years in a professional environment. Absolutely loved it. The video was great at the time, the Mark I, it was good at the time. Obviously things have come a long way since then, and they are saying that this new R6 will have 4K 60 frames per second. That's very interesting. That's great. That's exactly what the GH5 has for video. I have no doubt that as a photography camera it will be much better than the Panasonic, and obviously everything about these Canons has always been the color science, autofocus, everything's great. So as long as they don't take that away, it's going to be very interesting. Certainly something that's going to make me consider how I move forward. I do like to change and refresh things to keep my professional work interesting, but I have fallen in love with the way I use the A7 III. It's been fantastic. Now, I still use the Blackmagic 4K, Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I haven't bothered going over to the 6K because, again, resolution, I don't really feel that I need it. There's a few other benefits, but this has got, with a slightly cropped sensor, just the aspect ratio actually, it's the full width of the sensor, just the aspect ratio is cropped. This does 4K 75 frames per second. In the UK, we shoot 25 frames per second anyway, so that's 3 times slow-mo, which looks beautiful, and I'm just getting to grips with that now, having just done the firmware update. So I'm pretty sure this will still be the cinema grade. The dynamic range on it is great, and this will what I'll be using for higher end video work. But if I have got something that's got everything that I want in one body, that is the dream. That really is the dream. Where does that leave the Canon RP? Well, Canon RP has a 26.2 megapixel sensor, so that's really going to go into the middle. So yeah, this R6, it seems to be, is just going to sit at the bottom of the mirrorless range. But again, if the photography is good with it and the video is good with it, it could be the new A7 III competitor, the one that sort of gets Canon back into the game. They were never just going to walk away, so it's certainly going to be very interesting. I actually just last weekend used the Z6 very briefly on a wedding, so I've got a little review and my thoughts on that one. So I'll be really keen to see exactly what I can get out of an R6, an R5. They're also saying the R6 is going to have in-body stabilization, which the EOS R doesn't, which has been frustrating for people that have the EOS R. Friend of the show, Michael Wright, has one, and we were going to do a little unboxing and opening and have a little play with that and show you what he's been capturing with that very soon. But this R6 might come in and blow it out of the water, especially if it's going to be cheap. The 4K 60's got me really excited. A new battery, but I don't think it's going to be very different to the R5. It may even be the same battery as the R5, which again would be nice. So these specs sound good. The word is that we're probably not going to hear much on the R6 until May, but it may come out in May and straight out in shops in June. You never know. As with all rumours, take these with a pinch of salt, but you know, it's certainly something that's got me interested in Canon again, and I haven't said that even with the EOS R. I just haven't thought much about Canon since I left 18 months ago, nearly 2 years ago. So I'm glad they're getting back in the game. It's only good for competition, and a three-way split between Sony, Nikon and Canon is always good. Panasonic have been leading the way with video, Blackmagic have been doing great things, so it's a good time to be in the photography and video game. Anyway, I just wanted to report on these rumours, let you know what I've heard. I'd love to know what you guys think. Drop a comment down below if you think these specs are going to be what we see on this R5 and R6. Hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll be able to report back with the facts and then get my hands on one in the summer, and I will certainly do a full review, take them to weddings, put them through their paces and see if it's something worth considering going back to myself. Thanks again for watching. Please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you get told of when my next videos come out. Give it a thumbs up if you like this, or a thumbs down if you feel like doing so. As always, I'm Matt from Roto, and I'll catch you in the next one.